This presentation offers an overview of the therapist menu within the case management module of ACORN. In ACORN, the term therapist refers to professionals providing early support services. Some roles that fall under this designation are service providers and family resource coordinators. The following presentation outlines the processes for establishing and managing service providers or therapist profiles in the case management module. The therapist menu is located on the left side of the EI Hub homepage. Use the expansion arrow to view all submenus specific to service providers and family resource coordinators or FRCs. Submenus for service provider and FRC entry and management include Therapist Lookup, Therapist Add, and Therapist Reports. In this training, we'll be covering each of these areas. Let's begin with the Therapist Lookup. A user's role determines access to the Therapist Lookup functionality. Individuals with the appropriate access can search for service providers and FRCs using various data fields listed in the table. Individual service providers and FRCs will be taken directly to their profile page in the system by accessing the lookup functionality, but cannot perform searches or view other service provider or FRC records. You may use any of the search criteria to return a list of service providers and FRCs. Consider modifying the search criteria if neither is located after an initial search. For example, consider using the first 4 letters of a service provider's last name instead of the full last name. If no search criteria are entered, the system will return a list of all service providers and FRCs in the system. Use the ascending, descending controller for column sorting. Users seeking to filter, customize, and/or print service provider or FRC information should consider creating a report from the Therapist Report menu. The list may be exported into Excel format by selecting the Excel button. To open an existing service provider or FRC record, select the Edit button. To add a service provider or FRC profile to ACORN, select the Add submenu from the Therapist menu. Editability and access rights are determined by an individual's role in the system. To set up a service provider or FRC with basic demographic information, enter any new service provider or FRC coming into the system into the Basic Demographics panel first. Enter information for all required fields, including the service provider or FRC's first name, last name, and date of birth. Required fields are indicated by the asterisks. You may also choose to add any optional information. Select the Submit button to save your entry. When clicked, the system keeps the information in the ACORN database, and the record updates the Basic Demographics panel. The Addresses panel houses the Therapist Address Grid. Use this grid and panel to enter, search for, edit, and sort the service provider or FRC's address information. Multiple addresses can be stored. For example, the address can be the FRC's home, billing, or office. If the FRC moves, you need to input the end date for that address and enter a new address. The grid houses the address type, displays whether the information is masked, the address start dates and end date, status, and more. To edit an existing address, select the Edit button. Use the Inactive button to make the address inactive. Only certain user roles will be able to delete an existing address. To export your search results in an MS Excel spreadsheet, select the Excel button. Click the Add Therapist button and add a new service provider or FRC address. Proceed to enter your new address. After entering the address, validate the address entered by clicking the Address Validate button. The system prompts an address validation message allowing you to accept, change, or cancel the USPS address validation suggestion. Please note that address validation is required to submit an address. To save your entry, click the Submit button. When clicked, The system keeps the information in the EI Hub database, and the record updates in the Therapist Address panel. Use the Languages panel and grid to add, search for, edit, and sort various languages the service provider or FRC speaks. Not all user roles have the ability to delete a language. Use the Personal Email and panel to enter, edit, search, and sort a service provider or FRC's email address. For example, the email can be the FRC's home, billing, and office email. An email address can also be identified as a primary or secondary email. If the FRC's email address information changes, you need to input the end date and add a new email address. Use the Personal Phone Number panel and grid to enter, edit, sort, and search for a service provider or FRC's phone number. For example, the service provider's billing or office phone can be entered. If the provider's phone number information changes, you'll need to enter an end date for the previous number and add a new phone number. The next tab visible when adding a service provider or FRC is the Professional tab. The Professional tab allows users to add professional information, such as the agency a service provider or FRC is associated with and any licensure or certification information. The Companies panel and grid serve as a repository of all a service provider's or FRC's employment instances. This panel allows agencies to add and manage a service provider or FRC's professional information and is ideal for record-keeping and documentation purposes. Some of the following information can be added to a professional profile. The provider type. For example, is this person a provider or associated with a school district? The provider category. Is this person or business entity being entered as an FRC employed by an agency or a service provider who functions as an independent contractor? The employment role. Is this person a FRC or service provider? The provider's area of service or catchment area. The service provider's profession. Is this person an audiologist, an occupational therapist? The provider's status within ECIT, and the clinical supervisor assigned to the provider, if applicable. Use the Licensure and Certification panel and grid to enter, edit, sort, and search for a service provider or FRC's licenses and certifications. Information entered into this panel includes the licensure type, the licensure or certification number, the date the licensure was effective, and the end date. The Document Management Lookup results offer users report filters to search for and review copies of professional licenses or certifications relevant to a service provider or FRC. You are able to filter results by where the document was uploaded in the Case Management module, the document type, the document name, and document dates. The search results populate based on the filters selected. Now we'll transition to therapist reports. The Therapist Detail Report focuses on information reportable at a service provider or FRC specific level. For example, if you wish to locate information on service providers that render audiology services, this report is ideal. This concludes our brief presentation on navigating the therapist menu in ACORN.